like figures without, knowing the story. Presenting only the numbers and data won't make any sense. And that was, I think, a decade back. So he was purely believer of, like numbers and straight talks. Whereas I usually start with, background, context, a story, attached with a, like scenario, and then, numbers. So after some years, like started accepting, yes, it's always a story. So I think today we are all going to learn from a very expert figure on the subject. So I hand it over to forum back. Let Ajit introduce Bharatji, and then we like have this quick session. So welcome you all again, and over to forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharat bhai. Ajit bhai, you can move on.
Good morning, everybody. Can I be heard very clear and loud?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning.
Okay. The shortest definition or an introduction of anybody that could be, which I will give in the one line about Bharat, and then of course few lines so that the rest of the people who are in this seminar today would be more aware about Bharat. Bharat has been a family friend for me. He has been an Arcasian, a buddy, but a senior one. And throughout my career, I have observed him to be a figure to follow. So in a way, he's like a guru that I have been following silently. And the one-line definition is he is a super human being, which speaks everything about him. However, being short on the formal introduction, Bharat Avalani, based in Kuala Lumpur, is a FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods veteran who has crisscrossed about 73 countries. He is the CEO of Connecting the Dots, Malaysia, and the global partner of Anecdote International, recognized as a world's leader in the use of storytelling in business. He helps leaders and organizations tap into the power of stories to make strategies stick, bring values to life, and assist leaders to be more influencing, engaging, and inspiring at work. He strongly believes that storytelling can help restore humanity at workplaces. And this is something which we all have experienced now with the pandemic around, that as Parag Bhai also said, not figures and facts and that is everything. On the contrary, the stories, the background, the philosophy has a big role to play. Not making more time, I leave it to forum to open the dais for Bharat.
Thank you, Ajit bhai. And we are also live on YouTube right now. Those who have uninstalled Zoom or having issues, you can share it to have on YouTube as well. And welcome everyone, and over to you, Bharat.
Thank you, RMA. Thank you, Forum. Thank you, Parag Bhai, for setting the context of this talk, and Ajit, the very warm introduction. I'm actually feeling very much at home because I got my son listening to me. I got my wife listening to me from her clinic. I got my classmates from Pune who are a part of this webinar as well. And I got my school friends who are here as well. So I can't find a much better forum. And I wish at this point in time, I was in Rajkot with all of you face-to-face than here. But nevertheless, I think let's make do with the virtual world for the time being. I may know most of you, but there are some whom I may not know. And like I said, there are no strangers, only friends we haven't met. So may I get to know you a bit better? And Forum, do you mind launching the first poll? And if you could tell me, what are you? Are you an employer? Are you an employee? Are you a student? Are you an academic? Or other, so that I get to know you a bit better. So let's give them a few minutes, Forum. And can the others please mute yourself? Deepak Bhai, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Deepak Sachdev Bhai, can you mute yourself kindly?
Forum, maybe if need be, you can call Deepak by such day so he can mute. Maybe he is not realizing. Forum?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Bharat, we can continue.
Yeah, so I'm just waiting for a minute. At the count of 10, we'll stop the poll. But all those who have not responded, do you mind responding? We got about 32 out of 46 now. But I'll do the countdown, and Forum, when I finish my countdown, you can close the poll. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So Forum, you can end the poll and share the results. So we got a good mix. We got 28% of employers, almost equal number of employees, students, academic, and others. I'll be a bit more interested in knowing who the others are. Can one or two of the others please unmute yourself, and or probably in the chat box you could tell us who you are, the others. I'll be quite interested to know who are the other people interested in storytelling. And Forum, if you don't mind, can you monitor the chat box for me?
Yes.
In other category, I am a trainer and consultant.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. And while waiting, I'll also share my screen.
I am professional. I am R.G. Dwivedi. I am co-chairman at Bhopal Management Association.
Oh, lovely. So you're dialing in from Bhopal. How nice.
Yeah,
Thank you for being here.
I like historic listening.
Fantastic. So let's start. I think I want to actually respond to Parag. Parag says that he had a boss called Rodrigues, and Rodrigues used to tell him, don't tell me a story. And it's a bit of irony inside, because the minute you say that I'm going to tell you on a story in business, it doesn't work, So when you tell somebody like, I'm going to tell you a story, people will say, that guy's going to bullshit, or he's going to make up a story, or he's going to start entertaining. He's going to take a very long time. And sometimes storytelling in business does not have that positive impression that it has when you are in school. So my first tip for you is that in business, you tell a story without telling a story. So stories in business are invisible. You share an experience, like how Ajit says, Bharat is a childhood friend of mine, and we know we are family members. But if Ajit was like, let me tell you a story about Bharat, then the effect would be slightly different. So my first tip to you is stories in business are invisible. So you share an experience, share a moment, you tell a story, but don't say that I'm going to tell you a story. Then your impact is much better. So Parag Bhai, thank you for saying that, because that gives me a chance to give you a tip. Now, a bit about me. Just one second. So I'm a Rajkot boy. I was in Rajkot from 1976 to 1984. And most of my memories are the memories of my school, and also memories of Maganlal, Patel ice cream, snow cream, cold coffee, sandwiches. I think Anil samosas used to be very famous at our time. Gordon chevdo, and or rather the Gordon wafers and the yellow chutney. And even as I speak to you, my mouth waters. And I believe some of those memories still remain in Rajkot. So that gives you a bit of context about my time in Rajkot. And this photograph was probably taken around 1984 with my principal, Mr. Peter Rogerson. But I do have a regret, because most of my memories of Rajkot is that of my school. Can somebody tell Mr. Deepak to mute the video, if you don't mind? Deepak Bhai, do you mind muting? Deepak Sushdev. Okay. So I knew a lot about the school. I knew a lot about the good food, but I didn't know enough of Rajkot. So take, for example, if I were to ask you, like, who's Bhaktiba Gopal Das Desai, after whom Bhakti Nagar is named? Or if I were to ask you who was Dr. Ramanbhai Yagnik, after whom Yagnik wrote his name, or for that matter, Dhebar who was Ucharangai Naval Shankar Dhebar. Or rather, if I were to ask you, what was Connaught Hall before it was called the Arvind Bhai Manyar Hall? Or for that matter, Karan Singhji School, who was Karan Singhji? Would you like to give it a guess? In your chat room, can you just put in one sentence? You can answer any of the questions. So my question was, who was Bhaktibha Gopaldas Desai? Who was Dr. Ramanbhai Yagnik? Who was UN Dhebar? What was the Connaught Hall before it became the Arvind Manyar Hall? And who was Prince Karan Singhji? Let's give it a try. Let's see if you can, if you know any of the stories. I regret I didn't know this, but today I know that. But I just want to see how well we know about the stories from where we come from. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Just play around with the chat room. And don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but let's see how good our understanding is of Rajkot. I know about the Alfred High School. I know about the Kabba Gandhi Delo, because that's something which Rajkot has publicized quite well. But do we know enough of these places? I'm looking at the chat room as well. Okay, so I don't see any comments at the moment. Okay, Ashwin, okay, Dr. Yagnik was not a freedom fighter. He was the principal of the Dharmendra Singhji College, and he went on to set up colleges in East Africa. And Dr. Ramanbhai Yagnik's brother, Indubhai Yagnik, was a freedom fighter. Well done, well done. Thanks for responding. But I must tell you, there are freedom fighters on the chart. So, okay, Andy, I'm listening to you. I'm not aware. Yeah, Andy, you may not be aware of it. It's fine. But even those who are aware of it may not be aware of it. So, come on, can I have one more try? Okay, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, Nilesh. Okay, good. So, Bhaktibha Gopal Desai was the daughter of the Diwan. Oh, very good. Ucharangai Dhebar was the first CM of Saurashtra. Well done, Jayan. Yes, and he went on to become the president of the Indian National Congress. And he was the one who was responsible for forming Saurashtra. And you're absolutely right. Ucharangai Dhebar was the first CM of Saurashtra. Bhaktibha Gopal Desai was the daughter of the Diwan of Limbdi, and she married a prince, Gopal Das Desai. And after the prince passed away, she continued doing the great work of Gopal Das Desai. In fact, there's a beautiful book called The Prince of Gujarat. Karan Singhji was a very young prince. He passed away at the age of 14, but he was a very bright student. And I was told at the age of 13, he actually gave a recitation at the Rajkumar College, and he got a standing applause. And there's a Karan Singhji recitation medal that is given away at the school. And therefore, you have Karan Para, you have Karan Singhji Road, and Karan Singhji High School in memory of our young prince. Connaught Hall used to be the legislature of the Saurashtra State Assembly before it became a part of Gujarat. But I think the point I wanted to make was, we all got to be a story spotter. We are all surrounded by stories all over us. And if you're a leader, you must be aware of the stories, because then you got stories to tell. And I know during recent times, there are a lot of stories about the mask that is being prepared in Rajkot, the ventilators. So those stories are known, but we must also remember the stories of the past, because if you don't know your past, you'll not know your future. And I'm personally a bit embarrassed that I didn't take enough time to study about Rajkot when I was there, but it's still never too late. Now, so that's my first thing. I think you need to be a story spotter. And you must also become a story collector. All of us collect money, we collect wealth, and sometimes it depletes during the COVID time. But one bank that will not deplete is your story bank. And I'm going to give you a few tips later how to become a story collector. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through why stories matter in business, how business storytelling is different from Bollywood and Hollywood. What are the 3 reasons one must use a story? How do you know it's a story? How do you spot a story? And I'll demonstrate to you how everyone is actually a storyteller. And there are a lot of storytelling patterns, but I'll teach you one pattern which helps you to connect, build rapport, and show your character. But before I get into the details, let me share with you a moment when I actually experienced the power of storytelling when I was with Unilever. So if you look at the story of detergent, the story of detergent has always been that we are the enemy of dirt. That means my molecule is better than your molecule. You clean 99 stains, I clean 105 stains. You clean in 3 minutes, I clean in 2 minutes. And that was how the story of detergent was, claim and counterclaims. And after a while, you wouldn't know which brand is advertising which, because you can't attribute the claims. They all look similar. And that's why we said, look, we need to find a better story for Surf Excel. And then when we spoke to mothers, we realized that a mother's biggest worry would always be the development of a child. It will never be a detergent. But at the same time, we found out that childhood space is shrinking. Children are not allowed enough time to play because they are busy going from one class to another class to another class. So much so that their childhood space is shrinking. And if a child gets dirty, goes and plays in the rain, the mom gets very upset because worried that the child might fall sick or the shirt may become too dirty. But you know what happens when you deny a child the right to play, the right to get dirty? You're actually denying the child his or her childhood, because a lot of growing and character building happens when you are a child. So if you are a sort of a prisoner in a jail, you get 2 hours of mandated playtime. That's your right. That means they got to take you out of your room and take you up to the free world. Can you imagine how much time do children get time to play in the free world? In the chat room, can you just mention how much time do you think children have time every day to play all over the world? Take a guess. In the free world, how much time do you think children have to play? Take a guess. Okay, Ajit says an hour, less than 2 hours. So you are right. It's about an hour and a half. Now, isn't that a bit odd that children who live in the free world only get 1.5 hours and prisoners get about 2 hours? And that's when we said, look, let's not allow children their childhood. Let's allow them to play, because classroom without walls is as important as classroom with walls. And I was a part of the global team. It was called the Dirt is Good team, Daag Achhe Hai. And of course, the brand is called by different names. And this was one of our first television commercials that we came out with in India. And I'm going to actually show it to you.
Number 1 is very big. Number 2 is big. देख क्या रे तूने मारा इसको तुझे अब भी देखता हूँ मारता है अभी ये ले
दाग लगने से अगर कुछ अच्छा होता है तो दाग अच्छे हैं ना? सर्फ एक्सेल, दाग अच्छे हैं,
वापस नहीं करना.
So this was a very happy moment because children were allowed to play. Moms started appreciating Surf Excel, so the business also went well. A lot of people actually found their purpose in their work, and the brand actually moved from millions to billions. And that's the power of a story. And we also had to convince our people internally, because all this while our philosophy was dirt is bad. How do you change the mindset from dirt is bad to dirt is good? So we had to do storytelling inside the company as well as storytelling outside the company. But this is one of my favorite moments where I actually experienced the power of a story. Now, you know, an insight is an unexpected twist to a better story. So if you are a story collector, if you are a story listener, and that's where you'll actually find an insight. And this was the insight when we found out when we spoke to moms, and moms told that child development is the biggest worry. So whenever there's an unexpected twist to a better story, it's an insight. And I'd also like to tell you what is the difference between emotion and reason. Reason means PowerPoint, facts, figures, Excel sheet, that will lead to conclusion. But if you inject an emotion or story, it leads to action. And that's exactly what Parag Bhai was saying, that in order to make your data, in order to make your facts memorable, you got to inject a bit of emotions to it. And that leads to me that leads me to what a definition of a story is. There are many definitions of stories, but in a business context, stories are facts wrapped in context and delivered with emotion. So to help Parag Bhai remember this definition, I'm actually going to tell you a story, Parag Bhai, so that you'll remember this definition well. Now, is there anybody here in our audience who's got a pet at home? If you got a pet at home, can you just put in the chat box whether it was a dog and a cat, and what was the name? What is the name of the pet? Okay, Leon. Okay, Yana. Okay, very good, Yana. Yana's the daughter of my very good friend Bhavesh. So, Yana says that she's got a dog, and the dog's name is Leon. So, Yana, let's imagine that Leon has fallen sick, and you are very upset. So, you take Leon to the vet, and the vet says, "Don't worry, Yana. Leon will be all right, but you need to give some tablets to Leon." So you go home, you call Leon. Leon is not too well, so Leon needs a bit of a hug. So you cuddle a bit and you put the pill in Leon's mouth, and Leon finds the pill very bitter and immediately spits it out. Lana tries one more time, and this time, you know what she does? She puts the pill in Leon's mouth and quickly closes it, thinking that Leon is going to swallow it. But you know what happened this time? Leon starts resisting even more and spits it even further. Then you tell yourself, look, I got to change my attitude towards Leon. I can't be forcing Leon to have this tablet. I must change my attitude. And then suddenly you remember that Leon likes peanut butter. I'm not sure what Leon likes, but imagine Leon likes dahi. I think let's connect it to Guju food. So, so you take some Shrikhand and you take a spoon of Shrikhand and you put the pill and you give it to Leon. And Leon loves it, licks its paw and asks for more. So this is what happens. So if you look at the pill in the story, there are facts, figures, numbers, data, KPIs, targets. The dahi or the Shrikhand in the story is actually the context, and the way you serve it is with emotion. So if you can inject a bit of emotion, if you can inject a bit of context, chances are your numbers, your data, your targets will be better accepted. And I'm going to demonstrate to you what stories, facts wrapped in context delivered with emotion means. But I'd like you to remember the story of Leon so that you understand, and remember Shrikhand. So that's going to help you remember this story. Now, if you look at the world of storytelling, you know, my partners, Anecdote International, defines the storytelling as two different spectrum. On the right is the big S, on the left is the small s. So if you look at the big S, it's actually the world of Bollywood, it's a world of Hollywood, it's Star Trek, hero's journey, epics, legends, and it's an art. And there's a beautiful story and there's a format, and it's a world of fiction, but sometimes they do it so well that even fiction becomes a reality. Even the world of advertising actually is the big S. And that's what I did for 25 years in Unilever. I did brand storytelling. But what I'm going to focus on this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the little s, which is about us. It's about the people. It's about our life. It's about the life around us. It's about our story or the stories that we live. It's about our anecdotes, our examples, our life recounts. And those are real world stories. And these stories are very powerful to apply it in business. So I'm going to focus a lot about little s, and I'm not expecting you to be very creative. I just want you to all to be very authentic. Now, if I were to ask you, who would say they are a storyteller? And forum, can we launch a poll here? And the question is very simple. Are you a storyteller? Yes or no? Okay, can everybody respond? We got 32. Yep, it's a forum. Give them a few more minutes.
Dear all participants, this is Ajit here. Request you to be more participative and attentive.
No,
Please
they
say
are.
whether you are a storyteller or not. Yes or no, please.
No, they're all participating, Ajit. They are a very good audience. I only got about 4 or 5 people to respond, but looking good. So again, at the count of 10, forum, we can close it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So forum, let's look at the results. So very good. So the results say that 57% say they are a storyteller and 43% say they are not a storyteller. But if it's a face-to-face, I'll also get those storytellers to tell a story or two. But I think here I will not ask you. But let me tell you that there was a British behavioral scientist called Robin Dunbar. And if you Google, there is something called a Robin Dunbar number. And Robin Dunbar said that, can you please mute yourself? There's somebody who's unmuted. Please, yeah, thank you. So he said that any point in time, you can have about 150 active relationships in your life. So Ajit, if you have time, make a list and you'll find that there are 150 people in your life with whom you are actively involved. So that's called a Robin Dunbar number. But I'm quoting Robin Dunbar for another reason. So Robin had a group of PhD students working for him, and he actually gave them a project. And he says that what I like you to do, he said, I like you to hang around at places where people are interacting informally. So that means it could be cafe, coffee shops, canteens, or for that matter, mess, and listen to what people are talking. So you do eavesdropping, and then you come back and you codify whatever you have heard. And they found out that 60% of the time, people were talking about someone who did something to somebody and that someone was not in the room. So what do you call that? Can one person just unmute and say, what was it? I'm going to ask Palomi actually. Palomi, can you unmute yourself and tell me what happens when you talk of someone and that someone is not in the room? Palomi, are you there or somebody else? Okay, Ajit, what is it?
Like absent-minded?
No, it's actually gossip.
Okay, right.
Okay. So here a beautiful word for gossip, and it says gossip is like when you speak of someone and that someone is not in the room. And gossip can be good or bad. If you speak something nice, it's good gossip. If it's bad, but you know what? Gossip is storytelling. So is there anybody here in the room who doesn't gossip? I don't need to do a poll, right? Everybody gossips, but some of you may be shy to admit it. So the fact is, we are all storytellers, but not at work. So I'm going to next show you a video. And in this video, there are two characters, Scott and Sam. So Scott actually works for NASA Public Affairs, and Sam is a spokesperson for the president. And this particular video clip is from a series called West Wing, and the episode is called Galileo 5. And Galileo 5 is a moment where the spacecraft has just landed on planet Mars, and the president of the United States is going online is going live on TV to speak to 60,000 American children. Now, before he goes live, he's actually doing a bit of rehearsal. And I like you to focus on the storytelling style of Scott and Sam. So again, I remind you, Scott is the one who's wearing a jacket, and he is the spokesperson of NASA Public Affairs. Sam Seaborn is not wearing a jacket, he's wearing glasses, and he is the presidential scriptwriter. So I like you to focus on these two characters, and the clip goes on for about 3 minutes, 40 seconds. There's a bit of a setup, and then there's an interaction between the president and both these gentlemen. So have a look at the video and I'll come back to you, and I hope the video works.
Who wrote this intro?
I did.
You're from NASA Public Affairs?
Yeah.
You mind if I give it a polish?
Is there a problem?
No, it's great. You mind if I change it?
I'd prefer if you didn't.
Just the same.
Public Affairs has cleared the text. If it's going to be changed, I'd prefer if the president changed it.
See, that's kind of what he pays me to do, so.
Look, I don't want to step on your toes. You don't want to step on mine. We're both writers.
Yes, I suppose, if we broaden the definition to those who can spell.
Excuse me?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Sir, this is the crew from NASA Public Affairs.
How you doing?
Sir, we're going to run you through the drill for tomorrow morning. First of all, you'll be flanked on either side by the Flight Operations Manager, David Narakawa, and NASA Chief Administrator, Dr. Peter Jobson. On either side of them will be Dr. Samuel Thurman of the Meteorite Analysis Team from the Johnson Space Center and Dr. Joyce Gray Sutton, Planetary Geologist from Cal State Northridge. On these monitors, you'll be seeing the images beamed back from the surface, and on this computer screen, you'll be able to read the questions being sent in by the kids. I strongly urge you,
Yes.
I strongly urge you,
I know.
I strongly urge you, Mr. President, to act as moderator and pass the questions off to one of the experts on the panel rather than answer it yourself.
Yes.
Would you like to see some of the questions?
We have questions in advance.
Some of them, would you put them up?
Sure. Katie, 6th grader, Green Oaks, Junior High School, Austin, Texas, asked, how old is the planet Mars? That's a great question, Katie. The planet Mars is 4.6 billion years old.
What did I just say?
I knew that one.
Nobody likes a know-it-all.
Yes, God forbid that while talking to 60,000 public school students, the president should appear smart.
That's fine, just don't show off.
I don't show off. Stevie, 4th grader, PS31, Manhattan, asked, what is the temperature on Mars? Well, Stevie, if one of our expert panelists were here, they would tell you the average temperature ranges from 15 degrees to minus 140.
That happens to be wrong. It ranges from 60 to minus 225.
I converted it to Celsius in my head.
Thank you.
Can I see the intro?
It's up on the prompter.
Good morning. I'm speaking to you live from the West Wing of the White House. Today, we have a very unique opportunity to take part live in an extremely historic event which, whoa, boy.
How you doing, Mr. President?
Who wrote this intro?
I did, sir. I'm Scott Tate from NASA Public Affairs.
Scott, unique means one of a kind. Something can't be very unique, nor can it be extremely historic.
While we're at it, do we have to use the word live twice in the first two sentences like we just cracked the technology?
Look,
we're also broadcasting in living color, right?
Sam?
Yeah.
He's going to make some changes.
You gonna clear him with me?
I doubt it. Write this. Good morning. 11 months ago, a 1,200-pound spacecraft blasted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida. 18 hours ago, is it 18 hours ago? We're on the air at noon Eastern.
Yeah.
18 hours ago, it landed on the planet Mars. You, me, and 60,000 of your fellow students across the country, along with astroscientists and engineers from the Jet Propulsion Lab in Southern California, NASA Houston, and right here at the White House, we're going to be the first to see what it sees and to chronicle the extraordinary voyage of an unmanned ship called Galileo 5.
He said it right.
So I think the interest of time will go straight to the exercise. Obviously, Scott and Sam had different storytelling styles, and we'll talk about it in a while. But my question to you is, when you are listening to Sam Seaborn speaking, what was your reaction? How would you describe Sam Seaborn's version? So could you type one or two words into the chat window? So Sam Seaborn is the one who works for the President of the United States. 11 months ago, 1,200 pounds, 18 hours ago it landed. So that is Sam Seaborn. And so how would you describe Sam Seaborn's version? How did you feel when you were listening? As a listener, how did you feel? What do you think of Sam Seaborn's style? In the chat box, please. Right, Dr. Dharmesh Rawal, fully engaged. Chirag says factual. Nilesh, very involved. Herein, emotions included, felt very connected. Words with emotions. Yes, what else? Very attractive and unique. Yes, Yana. Making things grand with words. Nice forum. Talking with facts and figures. Jayan. Very good, very good. Thank you so much. So, Ajit, they are a very participative audience, okay? Said by heart. Thank you. It means a lot to me when you participate. Very good. Ashwin says, connecting the hearts to all those concerned. Numbers, emotions, and words that are easy to grasp. Sagar, I think I can stop my session. You already got the message. Very, very well. Sheetal says, very intense, very involving. Very good, very good. Now, I'm going to ask you the same question. What happened when Scott was speaking? So in your chat room, again, how do you describe the reaction? So Scott is the NASA public affairs person. How was your response like when Scott was speaking? Palomi says very bland and basic. Hiran Patel says straight to the point. Vaishali says sharing information. Dharmesh says very mundane, boring. Yes, Nilesh, very boring. Casual. Scott was there any emotion? Yes or no? Shital says very uninvolved, not so engaging. Very right, Ajit. Very good. Thank you so much. Unable to connect. No emotions. Jayan, informative. And you know what? Every time I sort of run these workshops, I ask the same questions, and we collect all the words and put it in a word cloud. And this is what happens when you put it in a word cloud. So when Scott speaks, the typical response would be is technical, robotic, cold, dry, boring, blah, formal, stiff with facts, impersonal, very arrogant. So very similar to the feedback which you gave me. And when Sam Seaborn speak, people find it very impactful, engaging, emotional, imagery, emotive, visual, personal journey, passionate. Again, very similar. So people from Rajkot are not different from people for the world. And that's what storytelling does. It unites humanity. Everybody responds to stories in the same way. Now, you know, both of them had a choice of speaking. So Scott chose to make a lot of statements. He chose to make a lot of assertions, and he chose to share opinions. So it was a very high level kind of way of speaking. But you know what Sam Seaborn did? He actually made a statement saying that the space craft has just landed on planet Mars, and he quickly took you to moments so that you could start feeling it and you could start visualizing it. And ask yourself, you know, what is your natural style? Do you normally speak like Scott, or you normally speak like Sam? And when I do face-to-face, we actually do an exercise, and it's a very interesting exercise. But you know, what was the reaction of the President of the United States when Scott spoke? So can somebody unmute and tell me, what did President tell Scott? Do you remember what the President told Scott? You know, what did he say? Who wrote this intro? So there was a resistance. You know, when you speak with a lot of statements and assertions and opinions, that means you are pushing stuff at people, and the more you push, the more resistance you get. And what was the response of the President when Sam Seaborn spoke? Can I have a volunteer? Dr. Dharmesh, what do you think? What did the President tell Sam Seaborn? It is the end of the video. What did he say? Can you unmute, Dr. Dharmesh?
He appreciated it. He really liked it.
Absolutely. Like, you know what he said? You got it right. That was his exact word. So there was a lot of engagement. And remember, when Sam Seaborn was speaking, he was pulling the audience towards you. Everybody felt engaged. Everybody felt involved. Everybody thought it is our victory. It's our win. But when Scott did, he actually distanced you. He pushed you away. So that's so again, leaders have a style of speaking. So you can either get people to visualize it, to feel it when you are speaking, or you could just make it very dry. And in terms of impact, you know, when you give a lot of lectures, this is very useful for lecturers. Sometimes when you speak a lot, not without any stories, your impact is very little. And that also goes to business leaders. But if you tell stories, the impact is very high. And as Parag Bhai said, people will remember it for a very long time. But in terms of habit, the frequency of using statements, of assertions, opinions is a lot, because it's a very easy thing to do, right? But the frequency of sharing stories or moments is very less. So therefore, frequency is less, impact is more. Now, Chirag, I'm going to put you in a spot. Chirag, unmute yourself. And you told me that Scott had a lot of facts. Do you remember any of the facts, Chirag, that Scott said? Don't worry, Chirag.
It landed 18 hours ago.
That was Sam Seaborn, Chirag. That was not.
Oh, sorry.
But I'll tell you why you gave credit to Scott, because I introduced Scott to you as a NASA spokesperson. So I introduced him as an expert. So a lot of you, without even listening, gave him credit for facts. But actually, Scott did not give any facts. He was very abstract. That's why the president was very upset. But you know who had the facts? Sam Sebon. 11 months ago, 1,200 pounds, 18 hours, 60,000 American children. But you know what was the beauty? Wrapped in context, delivered with emotion. So if I go back to the definition of a story, stories are facts, wrapped in context, delivered with emotion. That's exactly what Sam Sebon did. All right, so again, remember, you should, Scott spoke a language of expertise. So if I introduce you as an R&D person or a chief financial officer, then people expect you to talk facts and the language of expertise. But Sam spoke the language of leadership, and the language of leadership is very inclusive and it's very involving, and a lot of emotions that's involved. So I would actually encourage you from time to time to speak more the language of leadership rather than the language of expertise. Now, there are 3 reasons to use stories, and I'll do this very quickly. So one is a scientific reason. Scientific reason basically means that when you tell stories, there are 2 hormones that gets activated. So one is oxytocin. Oxytocin is a love hormone or a hug hormone. So every time you tell a story, there is a feeling of connectivity, there's a feeling of bonding. So those oxytocin gets activated. And another one is called cortisol. So cortisol basically is called a flee or a stay hormone. So it tells your brain either to stay or to flee. And I'm happy that there are 51 of you have still, the cortisol hormone is still active, because none of you have flown away so far. All right, so that's what happens to stories. And so when you tell stories, your brains actually get filled up with memory cells, and you actually remain. And imagine when you are speaking, it's terrible, right? When people are physically there, but spiritually or emotionally somewhere else. So this is one way for you to keep your engaged audience, or your customers also engaged when you tell stories. So it's very natural. And our brain is actually wired to remember stories and emotions and not facts and figures. So that's the first reason. The second one is a human reason. So if you look at the story of humanity, even 20,000 years old, even before human beings were speaking, they were actually communicating through stories, but they were drawings. So if you look at a lot of old cave paintings, so for that matter, even if you go to some of the caves of Ajanta and Ellora, there are a lot of paintings on the wall, which tells you a story of what animals to go and hunt, how to hunt, where is the danger, where not to hunt. So as human beings, storytelling comes very naturally to us. And that's something that differentiates us against the animal. So I'm going to next show you a video, and it's a very old video. It's a black and white video. It's a silent movie, and I'd like you to quickly sort of look at it and then later tell me what's going on. Okay, so in the chat box, I'd like you to just describe what was happening to you when you are watching the video. Just type your thoughts. Don't make it too long, just one sentence. It could be a theme of a Bollywood movie, could be a love affair, could be whatever. What was happening to your mind when you were watching the video? Oh yes, Yana, very nice. Dopamine. Okay, Dharmesh is breaking the boundary. There's a story of friendship, survival of the fittest. Anupama, birds of a feather flock together, getting in and out. Manju says love triangle. Two accomplices outside, one in the house. Okay, tries to engage with similar person. Ashwin. What else? What else? You folks are a good audience. Just before lunch, you are hungry and you are still very participative. It's a good sign. Good appetizer. Vibrant and moving all the time. But Ajit, what's the story? Nilesh says, describes the human nature. There's a mystery according to Sagar from Dubai. Loneliness, Ashwin, creates us panic, love scene. Okay, I think we can go on and on. But let me tell you, this video is very old. It is 1944. That's why it's black and white, is very grainy. And it was done by two American psychiatrists called Hyder and Himmel. So if you want to understand more, you can actually Google Hyder and Himmel study. But I'll tell you what happened in the first experiment. And you were also part of a similar experiment in 2020. But let me tell you what happened in 1944 when the video was first shown. It was shown to about 34 people. And of the 34 people, 31 of them saw it as a story of bullying at the office, domestic violence, love affair gone wrong. Some also saw it as some incest, and so on and so forth. 2% saw it as a story of birds and bees and animals, and 1% saw it as just geometrical shapes. And that's what it was meant to be. They are just geometrical shapes going in and out, and 1% saw it as a mere geometrical shape. Is there anyone here who just saw it as shapes and nothing else? If you saw it as just a shape and nothing else, please unmute yourself and just say so. But normally, most people actually made up a story in their mind. So can I assume that all of you, all 49 of you, we lost 2 people, all 49 of you actually had a story in your mind? Now, this is human nature. So when you tell something which is abstract, human nature will actually complete the story. Therefore, we got hundreds of versions of COVID. We got hundreds of versions of vaccine, because as human beings, we like to make sense out of the world around us. So as leaders, as business people, imagine if you speak in an abstract language, or as professors, if you speak in an abstract language, chances are the listeners will make up the story. And like I told you earlier, as human beings, we are always wired for emotions and stories, and we are constantly searching for meaning. We can't keep our mind not connected. And that's the power of a story. But it's equally important that when you tell your story, you are very concrete. Otherwise, the stories could be interpreted differently. So that's the scientific reason. And the third reason is the attention reason. We live in an attention deficit world. By the end of this year, there would be 4 times more digital data than all the grains of sand on Earth. And that basically means that the amount of data doubles every day. There are 500, every day you're exposed to 500 million tweets, 23 billion texts, 300 billion emails. So we are all drowning in data, we are drowning in information, but we are starving for knowledge. And storytelling helps you make sense of the data that we are surrounded with. Now, I've spent a lot of time sort of telling you storytelling, but I didn't tell you what is a story and what is not a story. And remember, I told you to become a story spotter. I told you to become a story collector. And in order for you to do that, you must know what are the story elements. So a story has a time marker or a place marker. Also, if somebody says 1944 or 1984, Rajkot, Bhakti Nagar, chances are there's a story coming up because there's a time and a place. And the next thing is story should have a sequence of events. There's a cause and there is an effect. 11 months ago, 1,200 pounds, 18 hours ago it landed. So you can actually start visualizing it. So when you have a cause and effect, when you have a time marker and a place marker, it helps the listener to visualize. Then the stories must have characters. Again, it helps you to listen. So if you look at the video, I told you to focus on Scott and Sam, and there should be a bit of dialogue, and try to give some names to the people. And there should be some unexpected moments. So when you are telling a story, there should be something unexpected or anticipated. So that makes it worthwhile for the listener to listen. And the last bit is, what is the point you are trying to make? And this does not guarantee that it's going to be a great story or a good story, but chances are there's a story coming up. Now, what makes it a good story and a great story? Perhaps you may want to write this down. A story describes what happened. A story describes what happened. A good story makes you see what happened. A good story makes you see what happened. And a great story makes you feel what happened. And that's what Sam Seaborn did. He made us see and he made us feel. So that's a story spotting framework. Now, there are a lot of things I can share with you about storytelling, but I'm just going to leave two things with you. One is a basic story pattern. So every time, what you do is that you make a relevant statement, you tell a story, and you make a point. And I'm going to demonstrate to you by showing you a video where Barack Obama interviews Jack Ma. So Jack Ma makes a statement, tells a story, and makes his point.
I know you've been passionate about the need to fight climate change. I want to get a sense from you of why you think it's so important.
Well, it's not the passion, it's the concern and worry. When I was 12 years old, I went to swim in a lake. And I was almost dying in that lake because the water was too deep, much deeper than I thought. But 5 years ago, I went that lake again. The total lake was dry. A lot of people have disease. And the second concern of the young colleagues died of cancer. 20 years ago, very few people have heard about the cancer, the word, but now most of the families, my friends, they have people have cancers.
Superb, isn't it? He started off by making a relevant statement, which is, it is not my passion, it's my concern. Then he shared two stories. When I was 15 years old, I went to the lake and I almost drowned. And I went back to the lake and there was no water. And then the second thing, people are falling sick. 20 years ago, nobody talked about cancer. And today, a lot of my friends are dying of cancer. And then, of course, it's a much longer video, but he makes a point saying that let's do something about it. It's a bit worry. And this is very nice. So as a leader, every time you make so if I were to ask you a simple question, tell me what good thing that came out of COVID. So a lot of us will say, look, I've become a better human being. I've become more spiritual. I value my family more. I value my friends more. I realize how important time is. Money is not important. You'll actually speak like Scott. And that's what happens. So if you are Sam Seaborn, you say, let me share with you one incident. I was sitting with my son and suddenly I realized that my son has been observing me doing work. And he says, Papa, your work is so boring. And my play is more fun. But then you are sharing a moment. Isn't it more engaging, more beautiful? So I don't have time, but I would actually ask each one of you to practice storytelling. And my question to you is, tell me one good thing that came out of COVID. Forget all the negatives, but one good thing that came out. So let me share. I was speaking to a friend of mine, Emily. Emily works for Malaysian Airlines. And you know what Emily told me? He said, Bharat, there are some people in the office whom I don't like. I don't speak to them. We are a group of 80. But lately, I started loving them. I'm actually beginning to miss them. I'd rather have them in my life than the stupid computer in front of me. And so he said, something has happened to me. I've learned how to appreciate people more. And COVID has told me that people are very important in one's life. So she's become a nice person. Isn't it beautiful? A relevant statement, a story. And the point she was making is that because of COVID, I'm beginning to like people more. All right, so. Sorry.
I know.
So I'm going to teach you something called building rapport and connection. So all you people here, I want to make one point. And the point is, people buy people first. You know, every time you sell something, remember people buy you first before they buy your product, before they buy your services. And people are interested in people first. People are interested in the company that you work for. Is it Patel Brassworks or Yogi's company in Junagadh? It's got a huge history. What is it, Sachin? Yogi what? Yogi? Unmute yourself. Sachin, unmute. Yogi what?
Yes. Yogi Industrial Corporation.
So right outside the Junagadh bus stand is Yogi Industrial Corporation. I remember when I used to go and visit my grandparents, I'll always look at it. So people are more interested in knowing who founded Yogi Industrial Corporation. They want to know a bit about the thing, and only then they'll probably buy product or service, because it's a Khandani history. So what I'm saying is that when you meet your customers, when you meet your dealers, when you meet something, people are genuinely interested in you. So, but most of the time we don't speak enough about ourselves in a way that we allow that person to get to know us better. We start speaking about price, we start talking about products, we start talking about quotations, and sometimes you realize that the deal is taking a long time to close. And there's a beautiful technique. So when you meet somebody for the very first time, show a bit about yourself, that you are like them. And also tell your listeners a story about what makes you tick. And the closest distance between two people is a story. And the well-known persuasion expert, Robert Cialdini, says, people are influenced by people who are like them. And it takes only about 90 seconds of this thing, but it helps you to build trust. It helps you to build rapport very quickly. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you a video where Indra Nooyi is being interviewed. Now, at that time, Indra Nooyi was the chairperson of PepsiCo. Now she's left PepsiCo. But in that video, you actually get to know Indra Nooyi's character quite well. And some of you may have seen the video before, but it still remains my favorite video.
So, Indra, you run a company with 300,000 employees, almost $70 billion in revenues. You come home one day as president of the company, just appointed, and your mom's not that impressed. Will you tell that story?
You know, this was about 14 years ago, and I was working in the office. I worked very late, and we were in the middle of the Quaker Oats integration, or the acquisition. And I got a call at about 9:30 in the night from the existing chairman and CEO at that time, and said to me that, Indra, we're going to announce you as president and put you on the board of directors of PepsiCo. I mean, I was overwhelmed because, you know, look at my background, where I came from. To be president of an iconic American company and to be on the board of directors, I mean, I thought it was just something special had happened to me. So rather than stay and work till midnight, which I really would have done because I had so much work to do, I decided to go home and share the good news with my family. So I got home at about 10, parked the car, got into the garage, and my mother was waiting at the top of the stairs. And I said to her, Mom, I got great news for you. And she said, well, then let the news wait. Can you go out and get some milk? I said to Mom, look, I looked in the garage. Looks like my husband is home. What time did he get home? She said, 8 o'clock. I said, why didn't you ask him to buy the milk? Because he's tired. Okay, he's tired. He's tired. We have a couple of help at home. Why didn't you ask them to get the milk? She said, because I forgot. I said, okay, fine. She said, just go get the milk. We need it for the morning. So I, like a dutiful daughter, I went out and got the milk and came back. I sort of banged it on the counter and I said, I had great news for you. I've just been told that I'm going to be president and on the board of directors. And all that you want me to do is to go out and get the milk. What kind of a mom are you? And she said to me, let me explain something to you. You might be president of PepsiCo, you might be on the board of directors, but when you enter this house, you're the wife, you're the daughter, you're the daughter-in-law, you're the mother, you're all of that. Nobody else can take that place. So leave that damn crown in the garage and don't bring it into the house. Now, I have to tell you, David, I've never seen that crown. I've never seen it. Between my husband and my kids, they've hidden it, so I haven't seen it ever.
So she used exactly the format which I told you. Show them you are like them. So I'm sure there are a lot of ladies who could relate to Indra Nooyi, right? I think you have a very important role to play at home, apart from the roles that you play outside. I'm sure every lady can relate to Indra Nui, and that's how Indra Nui connected to everybody. At the same time, she told her listeners about what makes her tick, and it talks about her professional life, about the thing. So that's basically a connection story. And most, if you listen to TED Talks, a lot of TED Talks in the first 2-3 minutes, the speaker will actually tell a connection story, and it helps her connect, him or her to connect to the audience. Now I'll move on. So, ladies and gentlemen, your character trumps your credentials. This chart was done before Donald Trump became the president, so don't worry about the word Trump. The point I want to frame is people are not interested in your credentials. People don't want to know what you know. People are interested in knowing how caring you are as a leader. And people respect you for your character. And it's important that as business leaders, you demonstrate a bit of a character of who you really are. And that's what matters. And the best way to know somebody is to live with that person or to work with that person. But the second best way to get to know somebody's character is to listen to his or her stories. Now, it's very important that all the organizations have something called a story bank. So I was actually speaking to a friend of mine in Jamnagar, and my friend told me that now, he's getting a lot of inquiries from Europe and the West, because a lot of these companies are changing their sourcing policy and they want to start sourcing parts from India and other parts. But he said the conversations are very funny. They don't talk about dollar and cents first. They ask me questions like, tell me the story of your company. Tell me the story of your people. Tell me a bit about your values. Tell me a bit about your culture. Tell me about some of your key people. What are your succession plans? And he said, in the past, I used to always discuss the best quality and the best price. But today, our customers are more interested in hearing other stories. So therefore, it's very important that we have our own story banks. And that's what I do. I help companies prepare their story bank. And what does a story bank have? It must have connection stories. It must have some stories about your key staff members. You may have the best salesman. You may have the best R&D. I think it's important that you project your people. There would be a company foundation story. Some of you are running businesses that were founded by your grandparents, great-grandparents, by your parents. So obviously you have something which other companies don't have, but we don't do justice to them. So those are called the company foundation stories. They are inside stories, a lot of innovations have happened in Rajkot. Why are Anil samosas the best? Or why is the cold coffee or snow cream the best? Because there could be some magic there. Clarity stories. How do you speak in such a way that people understand rather than get confused? There are also success stories, influence stories, value stories, teaching stories. And of course, you don't need to have the full bank, but you got to start filling up your story bank. Therefore, at any point in time, when you need to speak, you have your stories ready in your bank. And I'm going to end by just giving you a few tips on business storytelling. The first one I'll not repeat, and that is what Parag said, which was to avoid the S word. Don't say that I'm going to tell you a story. Just tell a story, share an experience, share a moment, and people will get it. Favor your stories. The best stories are your own stories. Of course, you can repeat stories from WhatsApp or Facebook or social media, but please acknowledge the source. Don't take credit for the story that is not yours, because if it's a good story, somebody would have seen it in WhatsApp 5 times before you would have seen it, and you think you are the only one who's reading it. The third one is banish the storytelling voice, because in business, you got to be authentic. You got to be okay with your vulnerability, and you don't need to dramatize. You don't need to act. So it's okay to be at your authentic best. And if you are upset, if you are emotional, it will show in the way you speak. You must know your point. Most of us are talking, but we are not telling stories because we don't know your point. Or somebody, you speak for about 5 or 10 minutes and the person is saying, "Aap bolna kya chahte ho?" "Aap kya batana chahte ho?" Or what is the point you are trying to make? And you remember the story of the squares and the triangle and the circle. People will make different points, and it's very dangerous. And keep them fresh. Don't repeat the same stories every time. And what else? Practice. Keep them short. A connection story should be 60 seconds to about 90 seconds. A foundation story can go on to about 3 or 5 minutes. And please don't write it out in full. It's not a test about your grammar and your English, because I think people respect your character more than your grammar. Speak to express and not to impress. And if you falter, just alter. And with that, I would like to close my talk. Those are my details, so you may want to take a screenshot. That's my website, anecdote.com. So that's got a lot of stuff on storytelling up there. That's my Twitter handle, my Facebook page, my LinkedIn, and my email ID. And I still got 45 participants. So well done. I think the dopamine or the oxytocin or the cortisol is still there. Thank you so much. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I probably take a few questions if you like.
Are we having a poll?
Oh yeah, let's have another poll. Well done. Let's do another poll. Do I need to share my screen for you to do the poll? Oh no, very good. All right, so can you all reply back again? Well done, 100% storytelling. Wow. Okay, this one everybody must reply. Huh? It's a test. Rajkot Management Association wants to know pre and post. Come on, a few more. Well done, well done. Carry on, carry on. You just need to say yes or no. There's no proof needed. Ten more people. Come on, it's time for lunch. Hurry up, the other 10.
I'm very much sure that a lot of people are have got a lot of insights and a lot of learnings today, and they are very sort of excited. I would want that by the end, like before Paresh bhai concludes with formal vote of thanks, we should have some of you getting unmute and tell us your experience of this session.
Very good. So at least the needle has moved from 57% to 81%. So well done. But this is just by listening to stories. But imagine if you start telling stories, it would be a very joyful experience for you. So I really encourage you. And probably when I'm in Rajkot next, we could meet up face to face. But thank you again, Forum. And I'll appreciate some feedback, and we can end the poll now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharatji, for coming on an invitation of RMA.
Yeah, and can we have some feedback? How do those people find it?
So a lot of people have already texted on chat box, but one can unmute themselves and have the conversation. We are open for the discussion.
So I think my question to you, has your view of storytelling changed after listening to me?
Thank you, sir. Very nice presentation, and you have made various things very clear. पर मेरा एक छोटा सा सुझाव है. Are you able to listen me?
Yes, I do. Please.
हाँ, मेरा एक सुझाव छोटा सा है.
एक मिनट, आपका नाम क्या?
मेरा नाम है आरजी द्विवेदी, मैं भोपाल से बोल रहा हूँ.
हाँ अरजीत जी, बताइए क्या है सवाल आपका?
मेरा सवाल तो नहीं है, सुझाव एक मैं देना चाहता हूँ कि अपन यदि इसमें जो कुछ भारतीय कहानियों का उदाहरण दे तो और अच्छा पड़े. हमारा लोग विल रिसीव मोर रादर देन शोइंग बाहर का वीडियो, बाहर की स्टोरी और ये करें. तो यदि अपन थोड़ा सा अपने भारतीय स्टोरी करें तो पीपल विल है, माने बाहर का से थोड़ा सा ठीक रहेगा हमारे हिसाब से.
So Arjit ji, thank you for your feedback. But sometimes you know, the Western people like to listen to Indian stories, but sometimes it's also nice for Indian people to listen to Bahar ki story. It's mutual, but it works. And India is a paradise of stories. But those are, I take your feedback, but I think one should be open to both. Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
I would also like to give my feedback. I'm Dharmesh Rawal, Vice President at RMA. Sir, I realized that how boring I must have been sounding all these years without using a story. So thank you for enlightening us. And the way you narrated was so interesting that it never looked like a webinar. Thank you so much. We loved it.
Thank you for the feedback, Dr. Dharmesh. And that is actually my one complaint. If you look at most of our educational institutes, it has made us very competent. It has made us very smart. But unfortunately, it has also made us a bit inhuman because the essential skills of working with people, speaking with feelings has actually gone. And I was actually speaking at the Goa Institute of Management, and I did a program with the faculty. And Dr. Rawal, you know what the faculty told me? He said, when we were studying, every time the lecturer finished the lecture, we used to line up to talk to the professor because the professor had got so many stories to tell. But today, the minute the lecture ends, we run away before the professor.
That part.
For your information, Bharat, for your information,
Who is that?
Dr.
Who is that?
Dr.
One
Paresh
person at a time. Who is that?
Bharat bhai, I am Dr. Paresh Karya.
Yes, Dr. Paresh. Can others please unmute? Dr. Paresh is speaking. Yeah.
Okay. સૌથી પહેલા big thank you અને તમારું passion, તમારું engagement, I think we were totally packed. Okay. અને એક તમને મારી email પણ આવશે. We will invite you at Ahmedabad Management Association. I really enjoyed, and I think we'll look forward to have one program at AMA.
Thank you, sir. And do you know Professor Rao at Ahmedabad?
I know him.
So Professor Rao invited me to speak at Isha Foundation with Sadhguru. And Professor Rao also took me to IIM Ahmedabad. He's a very good friend of mine.
No, we would like to welcome, and I really enjoyed. I think really, I can say a lot of learning together. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, Dr. Paresh. And I hope I have demonstrated to you that storytelling easy છે, ખાલી મહેનત થોડી કરવી પડે, બીજું કાંઈ નહીં.
Bharat bhai, I just want to give one example. Nilesh here, Nilesh Dongar. I'm also from Rajkot, and I studied from 8th to 12th in Gujarat medium in Saurashtra High School.
Right.
And one of our history professor, as such, history is such a boring subject actually. But he taught us in such a way, and he was always used to relate it with the current stories happening. So when you make the connection for the teachers nowadays, you know, it's a very, the subjects are very boring unless you make a connection with the environment today and what you have studied. It really makes so much of sense to make people and especially students more interesting in the subject actually. And what you said is 100% true. I really 100% agree with that. Yeah.
Anna, if you look at, I think absolutely right. The history is so bloody boring. I always failed my subject because I cannot remember the year of Battle of Panipat. I wish they told me more about the city of Panipat than the year the battle took place.
Thank you very much, Bharatji. I am Honorary Secretary, Rajkot Management Association. We are very much thankful to you for giving and coming in Rajkot Management Association. And I would like to share with you among the participants, a lot of people are from different professionals. So, I mean, we all got importance of the storytelling, what importance it is. And as you have made us all believe that storytelling can help restore humanity at workspaces.
And not only that, it will also help. Yeah, continue.
And especially the videos you shared, some 44 years old videos were there. Then Obama and Jack Ma came. And finally with Indra New York, CEO of PepsiCo. I mean, all the videos were very much lively. And let me tell you, all of us felt that we are live with you. And we enjoyed a lot. And next session also we are planning to call you back. Because today is working day, so a lot of people have complained why you have kept it on working day. So let me do again. We'll be contacting you. And Ajit bhai, thank you very much for bringing Bharatji over here. And we had a very excellent session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your kind words. Appreciate it. No, somebody mentioned about my website. The website is actually of my global company called Anecdote.com. Dr. Sean Callahan and Mark Sheng are our business partners. So it's got all the global stuff on storytelling. So it's the correct website, Anecdote.com. And if you look at among the global partners, you'll see my name there. But I'll tell you one thing. I think some of you are businessmen. You know, if you do good storytelling, even your quality of your relationship with your customers will improve. It will no longer be about rupiah and paisa. You know, people will like to do business with you, and it will be a much better business relationship. And I've personally experienced it, because if you trust somebody, you'd rather pay 10 cents extra or 10 paisa extra, but enjoy that relationship with people. Okay, one or two more comments before we close, because I think it's late lunch, no, for you all. But Rajkot, ma people have lunch late, right? Dod be wage liye, no?
Yes, yes. It's 12:34 right now. And is there anyone who would wish to speak up?
I think Dinesh Kakkad has raised his hand. Probably he wants
Yes,
to say.
yes. I asked him whether he wants to say something, or was it by mistake? You have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah, for him it was a mistake. I wanted to wave the hand. It was erroneously raised up. But I once again thank Bharat Bhai for a very nice session. We are speaker and trainers, but in a way dry and dumb. And now onwards we will start our making our talks interesting by involving the stories.
Thank you.
And making a point.
Thank you, Dinesh Bhai.
Okay. Ajit Bhai is raising. We'll have one or two, and then we'll allow us all to have lunch.
I would request our RMA panel members. There are a lot of RMA executive committee members and vice presidents in the session. So I would request like Nilesh Bhai Sachde, who is also a good expresser, to make his comments and the other RMA executive committee members, please.
And Anand Bhai also raised his hand just now, so probably let him speak.
Okay.
I think Bharat Bhai very nicely made us understand the importance of stories by telling his own stories. And as Dharmesh Bhai really pointed out, a lot of times we have point to make, but we are not able to connect since we don't have a really a good story about it. I think this is a wonderful session. And only thing is that we really need to work on this. It's not something that we can just listen to him and it will come in. We need to work on this, but I think it's an amazing skill if we can have. Thank you, Bharat Bhai. You've done us a big favor.
Thank you, Nilesh Bhai. Anand, you want to say something, Anand Bhai?
Yes. Just a second.
Is it Anand Avasthi with us?
A big thank you to you, Bharat Bhai. I am running a small branding consultancy firm, and I understand the value of storytelling as you have described it. And it was really great listening to you, honestly. And it was great connecting to you. As you had said, people who are alike, they connect more. Right. So I was less participatory, to be very honest, and I was listening to you very keenly. And Rajkot, if I may say this, Rajkot does need more people who are receptive to stories, because, as a branding consultant or as an advertising professional, when I go and tell my clients or my prospects that we should be talking about the product more rather than the details, technical details, and they are not receptive enough. So this webinar of yours would probably help us in making them more receptive to the impact of storytelling on business. Thanks a lot. It was really great talking.
Anand Bhai, I agree with you 100%. I think Rajkot is undersold. I think we are much, much bigger than what and Rajkot people are very modest. But I think if you have a story to tell, you don't need to be modest. And it's the 22nd most growing city in the world. Now that's a record. But if you don't have a story about Rajkot, then it's just a number. So I agree with you, Anand Bhai, completely. And I think Rajkotians, we have a responsibility to tell our stories, not only for ourselves, but for the growth of our city.
We are very innovative. We are very innovative, and we come out with such, out of the box solutions, and we just don't market ourselves properly, I guess.
Absolutely. Agree with you, Anand.
We have Jatin Kataria, dynamic personalities. Jatin, can you please shed a few words, because he has been doing some wonderful work and making Rajkot and the people popular worldwide. Jatin, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, I was about to raise my hand to speak, so it was a super moment. Bharatji, I love collecting stories a lot from people I met and the situation that we be into. And I love sharing the story whenever I get a chance. this is one of the by far finest session that happened, especially in line to storytelling. And the way you began with the story of Bhaktiba and Karan CG, and that was the crux that that pop up the mind of the people as well, that we need to put this kind of questions in front of us when you need to go to the reasoning and the deep. And the way you ended the session by giving a very important point, that you cannot say that I am gonna tell you a story. Yeah? You cannot say that I am gonna tell you a joke. You just crack a joke or you tell a story. But it was amazing, lovely, interactive session. I really loved it, and I hope that we all will meet you in person, maybe in Malaysia or maybe in India. But yes, we all as a large group trying to make a dent in the world to tell people where Rajkot is and what Rajkot does. But I guess lot of stories to come out, and lot of stories to be needed for the city and for the people of the city. And I guess more Wikipedia page of people, more articles, and more books that is coming out from people that will make sense. You can be the author for one of the book that can come from Rajkot if you wish.
Okay, Jatin, thank you so much for that. But if I may, the best stories are oral stories, stories that we tell. Don't assume that just because you have a website or you have a book, people will read it. I'm not saying book is not important. There are enough books, like this story of Bhakti Ba is actually written in the book of Prince of Gujarat. But how many people have read it? Raman Bhai, a lot of stories about him have been written, but how many people know it? But one thought comes, the Gola machine, the thing with the ice, they do fantastic branding. All the Gola machines has the word Rajkot. I've been to 73 countries, and trust me, I went to Leicester at a shop and they had the Rajkot Gola machine. Parts of Africa has got the Gola machine. And one day I actually want to find out, this person who does that ice grinder, that guy probably does not realize that his machines have gone all over the world as an antique.
So this city has a lot of stories. It just need to come out like great thing. But hopefully it will come soon, I guess. Yeah. But
yeah, I think thanks to social media, we got a lot of opportunities to tell stories. Stories of Morbi, pottery, and all that. But I also want to collect stories when I come to Rajkot, and I'll probably write that small book if I'm inspired. All right, so shall we close? And look, if any of you ever come to Kuala Lumpur, take my number from Ajit. You are most welcome, and Rotli Darbat Shak you'll get at home. May not be as good as the Kathiawadi, but it will be with a lot of love served by my wife. So most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bharat Bhai. Thank you so much. Thank you all for staying in, and we loved the session. Thank you, Ajit Bhai, for bringing Bharat Bhai here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. He is now a permanent affiliate in Malaysia for RMA and everybody who participated today.
So let me tell a bit about Forum. I think she's been awesome. And she also did something beautiful. That picto chart she uses to do the posters? That company is founded by my friend Go Aiching. She's in Penang, and I spoke to her yesterday and I said, Aiching, there is this city called Rajkot. He said, how do you pronounce it? Because she has never heard of Rajkot. And I said, there are people in Rajkot who are using your app. And she was thrilled. So imagine Rajkot is making a Penang company famous. And Forum, thank you for all your support to me. Well done.
Thanks a lot, Bharat Bhai. Thank you.
Thank you, Forum. Thank you for the organizing this beautiful seminar. She is a silent player, but she is contributing a lot to RMA. So 3 cheers for Bharat Bhai and Forum today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you
day.
so much.
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Good day. Yeah. Bye.